This is the car we've been hoping would exist for years. It is the Porsche Cayman GT4 RS, the harder core version of what was the sportiest Cayman that money could buy. But now it's a proper junior 911 GT3.
Here's the numbers. It's 4-litre naturally aspirated flat 6 that you may recognise from the GT3, can rev up to 9,000 RPM and produces 493 brake horsepower and 332 pounds-feet of torque. That's a respective bump of 79 horsepower and 15 pounds-feet over the GT4. That power is sent to the rear wheels by a 7-speed PDK gearbox, no manuals here, and Porsche says it'll be good for a 3.4 second 0 to 62 sprint, topping out at nearly 200 miles an hour.
While these are all very impressive numbers, what's more impressive is how this car stays glued to the road via these front wheel arch vents, via the manually adjustable front diffuser, which is done by waggling your hand around inside that front wheel arch, all the underbody aero, the rear diffuser, and of course, the big rear wing. As a result, this car produces around 20% more downforce than the standard GT4 when both cars are in their maximum attack track settings. And crucially, it does it without any penalty and drag.
The job here is to lap harder and faster than anything else out there. That means there's an RS-only shock setup and its own bespoke spring and anti-roll bar rates. Porsche's also used ball joints to keep the chassis tight to the body, making sure the car is as stiff as possible.
This is an RS car, which means it is the peak of Porsche engineering nerdery, which means there can be no compromise when it comes to saving weight. So in the back you have extra thin Gorilla Glass, you have a titanium roll cage, which is part of the Weissach pack, you have lighter door cards, you have fabric door pulls, you have storage nets here instead of traditional storage compartments, and you have less insulation. The sum total of all that means it is 35 kilograms lighter than a PDK equipped GT4, which means it's 20 kilograms lighter than a PDK equipped GT3 and just 3 kilograms lighter than a manual GT3.
All of those headline figures mean the GT4 RS can lap the Nürburgring in just 7 minutes 4.511 seconds, over 23 seconds quicker than the standard GT4 and just 6 seconds slower than a GT3. Admittedly, that was done with pro driver Jörg Bergmeister at the wheel and on a set of super sticky Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2Rs, which are available as an option by the way, but still, impressive.
Power, torque, weight, lap times, we know all of that, but how will the layman, the casual car fan, be able to tell the GT4 RS apart from the GT4? Well, I'll show you. The GT4 by comparison, as you can see, is fairly clean at the front end, whereas here it's maximum aggression. You've got the contrast coloured carbon fibre bonnet, of course, but also these knacker ducts which feed air straight to the brakes, and then these air curtains which smooth the airflow down the side of the car. Around the back, the most obvious difference is the massive rear wing with its swan neck mounts and aluminium supports. Now, this can be adjusted manually via 4 settings for varying angles of attack. But if you adjust this, you must also manually adjust the front diffuser to keep the overall aero balance of the car just so. And look, it's not just bigger than this wing over here, it's a lot bigger, isn't it? And that's because it's modelled around the 911 RSR GT race car and, of course, the 911 GT3. What else can I show you? Well, down here we have these twin exhaust pipes, same as the GT4, but these are more elaborate. These are titanium tipped, which is part of the Weissach pack. The diffusers, by the way, are pretty much identical, save for these extra little winglets along the side here. And while we have the cars together, let's put the stats up.
Question is, how has Porsche made the GT4 RS so much quicker than the GT4? And more importantly, why? Well, there's no better person to ask than the man behind all of Porsche's GT cars, Andreas Preuninger.
So I've got a few questions for you, and the first one is a big one, all right? So why did you give the Cayman the RS treatment? Was it because your customers weren't satisfied with the GT4? Or maybe are you hinting that I don't know, electric Caymans are coming and you want to make the most of naturally aspirated engines while you still can?
Well, Jack, like always in life, not everything is black and white. So all of the mentioned reasons were part of the mixture.
Okay.
We have to say, the first time we brought out the 981 GT4, the first of its kind, it was such a huge success. But everybody kept asking, why don't you put something even bigger in this mid-engine platform? And the lust for an RS version on the GT4 was already there on the last generation. That's for one. So it was really something we acknowledged from the customer base, but we as engineers and as people that are always wanting to climb up the ladder one step more, we always had that in our back of our minds to do something like that. On the second gen, we already planned that, and you're right, yes, the future of the mid-engine platform might have to do a lot with electricity. And so it's high time to have a big party on the platform of the 718 with a atmospherical, normally aspirated engine with 9,000 RPM. This car is a live concert on four wheels. It's such an entertainer, and it was such a fun project to make a fun car. And that was something that came from our hearts, and we wanted to do it a long time. Now we have the slot in the cycle plan to do it, and it fits the GT cycle plan very well, the CT model line. We have the GT3 a little bit more positioned on top, than we have the GT4 as a smaller brother, and this car is in between. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned the GT3 there, because how is this car, describe how it's sort of sufficiently different to a GT3, because on paper, quite similar prices. This is slightly less.
It's less.
Slightly less.
Yeah.
Weight, it's slightly less, but only 20 kilograms with the PDK box. And power, it's got GT3 engine. So tell us about the difference in character and how these cars can actually sit next to each other.
I think they will sit next to each other in a lot of garages. It's for the GT3 is our product that always has this huge competition all around it, internally and mostly externally. Everybody's trying to match the GT3's status, match the GT3's value package, match the GT3's performance on the track. And so we are very eager to give the GT3 everything we can to let it stay on pole position, like we did now with a double wishbone front axle. Sure. It has rear axle steering. It has all these gizmos that makes the car really fast. It has this advantage, I would say, of having the engine in the back with a short exhaust that has not so much back pressure. But this big wide wheels that we use on the track, and it has all this high performance stuff, and still is a driver's car. But it's a 911. It's a typical 911. The GT3 is the essence of all the virtues a 911 stands for. This is the mid-engine car. It's a little brother, yeah. I think it's positioned a little bit lower than the GT3, so it's at least in euros, it's 30,000 euros difference, so that's not slightly, that's quite a lot. And on that car, I don't think we have too much competition around in the field. Maybe the GT4, but this one is almost 24 seconds quicker around the ring in this configuration. So it stands for its own, and we didn't look too much into super aero and eke out the last tenth of a second on the track. RS normally means Rennsport, racing. And in German, it's better to be translated. It's RS. It's Rennspaß, which means Renn fun, racing fun. This is a little bit of a hybrid between a driver's car that you use on a mountainous roads, on switchbacks, and on really demanding roads for the driver, which you have a lot of fun driving the car just for the sake of driving, old school driving vibes, and a great car for track days. We tried to find the perfect compromise here, and I think we did, because from the emotional point of view, this is a complete different experience, because on a GT3, for example, if you're talking about sound, and sound is very, very important for our customers and for ourselves too, the GT3 sound is dominated by the exhaust. This one's dominated mainly by the intake. Which gives a complete different atmosphere and makes the driving from the acoustics completely different, which is important, but it has a mid-engine configuration, so the high axis turnaround willingness, I would say, it doesn't need a rear axle steering for that, so the whole mid-engine feeling is very, very much noticeable in that car.
Is this a more hardcore model? If you drove them on a track, would it be trickier to extract the maximum potential from this than to extract the maximum potential from the GT3?
I think this is something that has to be decided individually.
Sure,
I mean, our race drivers drive the same car with the same track and lap times with a completely different setup. So it's what you're used to. It's what you have in your veins a little bit. It is not hard to drive. It is mid-engine, so it is at the very, very edge, a little bit more snappy, which is normal. It is definitely a lot more hardcore than the GT4, which we see over there, because we've got different suspension. We got a little bit more aero. We got at least 80 horsepower more, and this 500 horsepower is very conservative. And so I would say it's more hardcore. Is it more hardcore than a GT3? Yes, in a way, because it's way louder in the interior. I mean, we're matching all the worldwide criteria for external noise, but in the interior, this is such an entertainer. It's like the Robbie Williams.
Yeah.
Let me entertain you. This is what this car is about.
The Robbie Williams of Porsche.
And
it's interesting because you mentioned the intake there. But if you can take us around the most important bits that make this an RS, not just a GT4. We were talking about the intake a minute ago.
Do we have so much time?
Yeah, come on.
Let's start right where you're standing. I just described the acoustical differences that we have to in comparison with GT3 and on the GT4 as well. And there's a reason for that. It's not only the engine being a GT3 engine, which people might think that must sound same or similar. It does not, because we're taking the intake charge from here. So the intake port for the process air, so the air that enters the engine for combustion, we threw out the window, and here are ducts that lead to an air filter element, to a big airbox, which you can see actually.
Can we pop the lid?
Yeah, sure, we can pop the lid and show you. You see this carbon fiber airbox here, and you see the runners that come directly from the rear-sided intakes where normally the windows sit, and all the intake is coming over here. The air filter element, which is a race filter down there, it's not a paper filter, it's a oil-waxed cloth filter, very high quality and very less back pressure. So we have here the intake system that goes straight down to the engine. The engine is mounted directly underneath here. And the only difference actually to the GT3 engine is the intake, the upper intake part, because we had to turn around the throttle body to a horizontal position to be able to match, to get the air in. On a GT3, it's 90 degrees to the other side.
That's the only difference.
That's the only difference. Wow. And the exhaust. I mean, the engine is mounted in the middle, so we need a little bit of a longer exhaust because we have to go through the drive shafts and there's a longer travel to the back.
Speaking of the exhaust,
titanium end tips. Yes. This is Weissach package.
Do I recognize from the 935?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, the 935 stole this idea from historical cars. We stole it from the 935, which was done by roughly the same people. And we wanted to have a nicer looking exhaust than the one on the GT4. You should really definitely see this is the RS, even if you're behind, and it's lighter.
And are these going to glow interesting colors?
Depends on your driving style. I mean, and titanium normally gets this bluish note. So all the cars we are testing, and there's cars with 100k miles and more, they're in the first, let's say, almost an inch. They're blue. Which looks fabulous. And which matches the wheels, actually.
Yeah, there we go. Go for the blue wheels to match the blue exhaust.
In the status.
And you mentioned the Weissach pack there. So what does that add? It sounds like, I've been looking around the car, it's kind of a must-have option to get the maximum out of it. So the exhaust tips and what else?
Weissach package we introduced first on the GT2 RS, and we had a take rate of about staggering 90% or more. So we decided every RS model needs a Weissach package, and it consists of similar ingredients. The recipe Weissach package is mostly lightweight, and we like to show off the carbon. So we see the carbon fiber front hood or bonnet in English, I think.
Bonnet, we'll go with
the bonnet. And you can have it as well. Maybe you remember the color scheme of the GT2 RS, which had this colored stripe along the front hood. You can have that too.
Okay.
Looks more sophisticated. It's a special option. I will show the world on my car as soon as I'm allowed to. This one's got the normal coloration.
Would that stripe match the
And
paint,
this is-
or it's any color you want?
Yeah, in the color that your exterior color
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Otherwise, it looks like a clown. So we don't want to have that. We have this carbon fiber bonnet on the Weissach. As a visual carbon fiber, all the cars have carbon fiber bonnets, so it's just painted. Magnesium rims, so these are very lightweight magnesium rims. If you don't have the Weissach package, you got forged aluminum ones, but the weight difference is substantial, as you might know. And another bit is, if you look at the interior, we have a race text covered upper part of the dashboard. Which looks very, very cool and very racy and
Also
very classic.
935.
Also 935, yeah. So there's technology transfer between race and road.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what Porsche stands for.
Sure.
And another bit of the Weissach package is this hood that you see here, the scoop.
Yeah.
The normal version doesn't feature the scoop here, and this scoop mirrors the optic of this. What does it do? A little bit more pressure, a little bit more RAM effect. It's not much. It looks nice.
Does it have more power?
And it sounds different because you've got here a chamber that is changing the intake sound to the better.
And
but it's louder a little
I
bit.
can't help noticing how close this intake is to your left ear.
When we sit
you're
inside,
driving.
it's 30 centimeters.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you hear everything. You hear such a symphony of different frequencies, and it depends on the revs and on your load. This is so entertaining. This car really tells you stories all the time when you're driving. Thin glass, Gorilla Glass, carbon fiber wing, that is visual carbon fiber, titanium end tips, and stabilizers in carbon fiber.
Yeah.
And what else? On the interior,
I'm testing you now.
you got the you got the badges and the emblems as a matter of fact.
On the headrests, yeah.
Yeah, and that rounds it up.
Okay, so while we're looking at the driver's seat, there's one other thing. Isn't there a special mode? It adds downforce and...
We have a sport mode which makes the PDK shift more directly, more brutally, I would say, for racetrack use. We can influence the dampers from, let's say, the Nürburgring Nordschleife setup, which is default. It's not a comfort default. It's what you use on the street, especially on B roads in England. And we have the little bit tauter Grand Prix track setting, I would say, that you would use on maybe Silverstone to make the car even a little bit more stiff and control the body movements even a little bit more, and taking away a little bit of the freedom to travel over the wheels, which you don't need when it's flat. But matter of taste. I always run it in a Nordschleife setup because that's where it's set up originally, and this works pretty good.
even for your commute?
Yeah, I mean, commute. I mean, this is definitely not the car that you buy if you have to go from, now it's talking English terms, from London to Glasgow once a week.
Yeah.
This is stupid. This is your motorcycle.
Yeah,
When you want to
weekends.
drive a motorcycle and you leave the motorcycle and you'd rather take this. This is for the sake of driving and for having fun in the car.
Okay, and I can't help noticing there's many options for this car, but you're wearing one on your wrist. So we should talk about this.
And I can even take it with me without entering the garage. This is a new watch that we brought out. That this goes along with the car. It bears the same VIN number than the car. That you can only order that when you order the car.
Yes.
And it features an automatic movement with a rotor that is.
And the rotor here, so blue rotor to match
the wheel, so you get
wheels.
exactly a spec that you have on your car. If you have a gray car, you get a gray circle here. If you get a yellow car, this is yellow. So it's pretty much customizable.
Yeah.
Hey, well, look at yourself.
Look at this.
And you can wear it for the day.
Oh, thank you so much. Right, leg it.
So-
There we go. This is a step above. And now the big question, the final question. How do I get myself on the waiting list for one of these? Because the competition for these cars is hot.
I think that could be a discussion that is coming, because it's not limited. It's not a limited car. So, and we're gonna have a production run of at least 2.5 years on that one. So there'll be plenty of cars coming around. I mean, I remember when we first introduced the 718 Spider and the GT4, everybody was crying, "Oh, I didn't get a car, I didn't get." Mostly everybody has one now. So maybe it takes some some patience
Sure.
before we are able to build it, but we are preparing that we can build enough cars, so we're not deliberately make a shortage out of these cars. We're just producing as many as we can.
Yeah.
But it is realistic that this car will find a lot of lovers out there that want to have one. This is true, and we're trying the best to cover it all.
Especially when we actually have a go at driving it.
Absolutely.
Which I hope is soon.
Yeah, I mean, driving that thing is really something I'm looking forward to when all the journalists drive the car, because everybody of you will come back with a mad grin on the face and ask me, "Are you mad?" Yeah? Because this is the notion that you get when you drive the car in 2022, to make a car that emotional and that entertaining as this one. So
we need to enjoy it while we can.
Absolutely.
Just one more question. How much is it? Well, this will set you back about 141,000 euros, which translates to about 120,000 pounds, which is a decent chunk cheaper actually than the 911 GT3. So where would your money go? If it's on a GT4 RS, may I recommend you get on the blower straight away, because they're aiming to start deliveries of this thing before the end of this year. And trust me, it's going to be a special thing.